Chapter 1. Jenny, are you really going to leave Simon and go abroad? In the quiet cafe, Jenny put down her spoon and looked calmly at her surprised friend across the table. We're already divorced. Divorced? Elena was stunned by the news. And the next second, indignation flared up. Simon actually agreed to it? You've treated him so well these past 3 years, anyone else would have fallen for you by now. Did he really not feel a thing for you? Jenny smiled faintly, her eyes flickering. Truthfully, she didn't even know if he agreed. Half a month ago, when she gave him the divorce papers, he was on the phone. He signed them without listening to her and left in a hurry. He never brought it up again. Now, in just 2 more weeks, she could pick up the divorce certificate and be free. She was just about to speak when a deep male voice came from behind. Done talking? Both girls turned around to see Simon Zhao walking toward them in a black trench coat, his long legs moving with purpose. Elena was still full of righteous fury and stepped forward, ready to question him. Simon, Jenny just said that you two are div. What are you doing here? Jenny gently patted Elena's hand to calm her, shaking her head slightly to interrupt at the right moment. Looks like it might rain. Thought I'd pick you up. Only then did Jenny smile, say her goodbyes, and grab her bag to leave with him. On the way back, rain softly tapped the windows, while the inside of the car remained silent. Facing the wife he married by accident, Simon parted his lips several times, as though trying to start a conversation, but then remembered it had been half a month since he'd last come home. After a long silence, he finally remembered something and asked, Jenny, that document you asked me to sign half a month ago, what was it? Took him this long to ask? Well, he had been chasing after Abigail so non-stop. Of course he didn't care about anything else. Jenny gave a faint smirk and was about to speak when Simon's phone rang again. Simon, I drank too much. My head hurts. Can you come pick me up, please? Hearing her slightly whiny tone, Simon gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles pale, his face darkening. Abigail Sue, I've told you many times, I'm married. There was a short silence on the other end before she said, so what? I was supposed to be the bride at that wedding. The indifference in her voice infuriated Simon Zhao. In 3 years of marriage, Jenny had only ever seen his cool, self-controlled side. This was the first time she saw him lose it. He slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched violently against the ground. Then why didn't you show up? The line went silent. After a moment, her voice came back, slightly choked. Sorry, I won't bother you again. The call ended quickly, but Simon Zhao's expression didn't soften. If anything, it grew colder. He tapped the steering wheel with his fingers, and after a long pause, finally gave in. Send me the address. After receiving it, he turned to Jenny with an apologetic look. Jenny knew what he was going to say and spoke first. If you've got something to do, go handle it. I'll take a cab home. As she opened the door and raised her umbrella, Simon hesitated for a moment and said softly, I'll come back to be with you once I'm done. Jenny nodded. She stood in the rain, watching his car disappear into the downpour, her eyes full of complicated emotions. This was her 7th year loving Simon. She still remembered the moment she fell for him at first sight on the basketball court. Wearing a jersey, he sank 10 perfect shots, breaking through the opposing defense all by himself, becoming the star of the game. The girls around her screamed, telling the new students about him. Simon Zhao, from the computer science department, campus legend, heir of the Zhao family in our city. Unfortunately, his heart had always belonged to his childhood sweetheart, Abigail, with whom he'd been for many years. He would spend lavishly on her, renting out an entire amusement park to surprise her for her birthday. He'd swallow his pride and beg her in front of the whole campus, just because someone confessed to him and Abigail. Throwing a tantrum blocked him out of jealousy. He'd wait in the snow until his hands were frozen. And even when Abigail ditched him to do her nails with a roommate, he never once complained. All through college, Jenny heard countless romantic tales about Simon and Abigail. She always thought she'd just be a background character in their love story, witnessing their happy ending, until 2 years ago, when Simon couldn't wait to marry Abigail right after graduation. Jenny didn't get an invite, but she went anyway, as a classmate. The wedding started, but Abigail still hadn't shown up. Simon panicked, called her 99 times, and finally got a message saying she didn't want to get married so soon. She had already left the country. That day, Simon's patience ran dry. He didn't indulge her anymore. He picked up the mic and said, "Today, I, Simon, have decided to pick a new bride. Any single lady interested?" Usually quiet and invisible, Jenny's heart pounded wildly. She knew too many girls liked Simon, so the moment he finished speaking, she stood up. That day, she put on a dress that didn't fit and married a man who didn't even remember her name. For 3 years, they lived with mutual respect, peaceful on the surface, until a little over a month ago, when Abigail Sue returned to country. Jenny watched Simon struggle, resisting yet still drawn to her, and knew her dream was over. It was time to return the title of Mrs. Zhao, to fulfill his obsession, and to finally free herself. In the pouring rain, Jenny sent Simon a message. "The document you asked about is in the glove compartment. If you want to know what it is, just open it." Chapter 2. It wasn't until half an hour after she got home that Simon Zhao finally replied with a single sentence. "No need, since you had me sign it. I trust it won't harm me." Which meant, of course, he hadn't even looked at it. Naturally, he had rushed off to pick up a drunk Abigail. How could he have time to check anything? Even if the document was sitting right next to him, within arm's reach, the rain poured all day, only stopping by the next evening. Jenny stayed home the entire time, quietly deleting all her post-marriage photos and updates from every social media platform. When she finished clearing out her feed, she exited the app, only to see Abigail's freshly posted 9-photo collage. It was on a yacht, each photo artfully composed, subtly showing a man's slender hand. Jenny knew it was Simon, and she knew Abigail had done it on purpose. But now, she no longer cared about such things. She turned off her phone, got up, and went into the kitchen to make herself a salad. Just as she finished preparing dinner, Simon unexpectedly came home. Seeing the cake in his hands, Jenny paused for a moment. "You don't even like sweets. Why'd you suddenly buy a cake?" Simon walked over and frowned slightly when he saw her dinner. "It's your birthday today. Did you forget? Why such a simple meal?" Jenny froze. Her parents had divorced when she was 4 or 5, leaving her with her grandmother. When she was about 15 or 16, her grandmother passed away. No one took care of her after that, and she stopped celebrating birthdays altogether. But during the 3 years of her marriage with Simon, he remembered every single year. No matter how busy he was, he would always come home to celebrate with her. When she returned from trips, he would meet her at the airport, worried for her safety. When it thundered and rained, knowing she was afraid, he would hold her gently in his arms. Jenny had thought that all these subtle gestures and moments of concern meant love, until, on their 1-month wedding anniversary, Simon used work as an excuse to cancel their pre-booked candlelight dinner. Disappointed, she went to the bar after Elena asked her to bring over a coat, only to stumble upon Abigail. She was completely wasted, clinging to the man who was supposed to be working late at the office, refusing to let go. Simon's face was grim as he tried to pull her away in anger. "Abigail, don't pull this crap again. Let go. What do you take me for? Some toy you can toss away and pick up whenever you feel like it?" But Abigail didn't care. She kept hugging his waist again with the same hands he had brushed off, again and again, tirelessly. In the end, Simon Zhao finally gave in. He just stood there, looking down at her with eyes full of suppressed love and surrender in his tone. "Abigail Sue, what do you want me to do with you?" At that moment, the coat in Jenny's hands slipped to the floor. Countless scenes flashed through her mind. The hands that once held tightly in the crowd, the umbrella tilted toward her in the rain, the figure kneeling in graduation robes proposing. Each memory, a testament to Simon's love only for Abigail Sue. She had witnessed it all, and thus could not deny the truth. Not even after 3 years of marriage. Not even though she was his wife. Not even after experiencing his rare moments of kindness. Because the truth was, everything good Simon gave her had merely been borrowed from Abigail's temporary absence. Jenny had clung to those crumbs, foolishly thinking she had the whole cake. But in reality, she never had a piece of him, not even for a second. So now, looking at the 24 on the cake, Jenny felt nothing. She simply nodded politely and said, "Thank you." Simon lit the candles and smiled softly. "Jenny, We're husband and wife. No need to thank me like a stranger. Make a wish." She nodded, just about to stand up, when Simon's phone rang. Seeing the flicker in his eyes, Jenny already knew who it was, and just as she expected, 1 minute later, the call ended and Simon left. As the sound of the car faded into the night outside the window, Jenny curled her lips into a bitter smile. The room was dark. The flickering candlelight cast her lone silhouette on the wall. She pressed her palms together and made a wish for her 24th birthday. This year, Jenny will stop loving Simon. Chapter 3. 3 days later, there was a reunion for the class of 2021 computer science department. Jenny didn't realize Simon would be there until she arrived. He was at the center of a lively crowd, but the moment he saw her, he immediately came over and sat beside her. The atmosphere in the private room shifted strangely as soon as they sat together. Jenny knew the reason was her. In the eyes of these college classmates, she had only married Simon to climb the social ladder, so no one respected her. But she didn't care about their contempt or their assumptions. She sat there quietly, calm and composed. The class monitor arrived late, holding a big cardboard box and greeting everyone cheerfully. Today's reunion has 2 purposes: 1, to catch up with old friends, and 2, remember the letter to your future self activity from 5 years ago? It's time to open them and see what we wrote. Excitement buzzed through the room as people crowded around the box, chatting noisily. Let's make it fun. Everyone randomly draws a letter and reads it aloud. Great idea. I'll go first. The most energetic guy in the class pushed his way through the group and picked out a letter. As everyone around him urged him on, he tore it open, cleared his throat, and began to read. Dear Jenny, 5 years from now, how are you? I'm writing this under the sunshine, not knowing what your life will look like when you read this, but I want to pass along the feelings I have at this very moment. The room fell silent at once. All eyes turned toward Jenny. Even Simon Zhao, who had been playing with his phone, raised his head in surprise and looked at her. Jenny's normally emotionless expression flickered as her heart skipped a beat. The guy glanced at her with a mischievous grin and continued reading. This year, you're 19, a sophomore. You've fallen for Simon, but he doesn't know it. And even if he did, it wouldn't matter. He already has someone he loves. Your quiet affection is destined to go nowhere. You might ask, if it's hopeless, why not give up? I want to tell you that I fell for him not because of any outcome, but for the way he charges forward amid cheers from the crowd. For the way he shielded me from a flying basketball in the evening breeze. For the way he turns people down with kindness and sincerity. It was me who craned my neck in every morning meeting just to sneak a glance at him. It was me who ran through the storm to slip medicine into his drawer when he got hurt playing ball. It was me who filled page after page of my journal with his name all night. Maybe, for the rest of my life, he won't even remember who I am, but it doesn't matter. Because having a crush is a one-person battlefield. When the letter ended, the entire room was dead silent. Simon froze, body tense. Suddenly, he remembered that wedding he'd rather forget. He remembered the strange looks people gave him. He remembered that figure who stood up without hesitation and walked straight toward him. And at that moment, he finally understood why Jenny had married him. It wasn't, as others had said, because she wanted power or status. It was simply because she had secretly loved him for years. In that instant, his long-stilled heart began to beat faster. He didn't know why. Impulsively, he wanted to ask her everything, wanted to uncover all the answers hidden in silence. But before he could speak, Abigail called. Simon, I'm downstairs at the clubhouse. Some thugs are blocking my way. She hadn't finished speaking when Simon Zhao's face changed. He sprang to his feet and rushed downstairs. The moment he saw the yellow-haired punks, he threw the first punch. His fury made his hits brutal. Within seconds, blood was pouring from one guy's mouth. The group behind him quickly shielded Abigail as she cried, saying one of the tattooed men had touched her hand. Hearing that, Simon picked up a metal bar nearby and slammed it down on the guy's hand. A scream of agony echoed through the building. Jenny rushed downstairs and saw exactly that scene. The man's hand was mangled, drenched in blood, nearly destroyed. She froze. Instinctively, she looked up at Simon, only to see him walking away, gently holding Abigail in his arms. That man who had been violent and merciless moments ago now wore the softest expression, speaking to her in a voice full of tenderness. That was a version of Simon Jenny had never known. She lowered her gaze, hiding the emotions in her eyes. Then she let out a bitter smile of self-mockery, and quietly turned back home, alone. Simon didn't come back until after midnight. Seeing her sitting silently on the couch, he finally remembered to offer an explanation. Jenny, they're all classmates. I couldn't just ignore what happened to Abigail. Jenny had no desire to expose the lie. She simply nodded and walked into the bathroom with her pajamas. Half an hour later, she came out drying her hair, only to see Simon holding her phone. A strange look on his face. Jenny, why did you buy a plane ticket? Chapter 4. Jenny paused for a second, then quickly came to her senses and took the phone back. I didn't buy anything, probably just a promotional message from the airline. Simon Zhao looked like he still wanted to ask, but seeing the way Jenny clearly didn't want to explain, he let it go. After all, Jenny never lied to him, did she? So he set the phone down, nodded, and was about to head to the bathroom, but Jenny stopped him, then pulled out the first aid kit from the cabinet. There's a scratch on your back from a shard of glass. Let me take care of it for you. Simon was stunned for a moment, then obediently sat on the sofa, took off his jacket, and revealed the gash on his back. It wasn't a serious wound, but because it was on his back, no one had noticed. He hadn't expected Jenny to catch it. Watching her carefully disinfect the wound with a cotton swab, he thought of that letter. Jenny, that letter today. Just rinse it when you shower later. Otherwise, it'll get infected. Next time you get into a fight, be more careful. There won't be anyone left to treat your injuries. Jenny didn't give him the chance to speak further. Simon, momentarily distracted, didn't quite catch her last sentence and looked up. What did you say? Jenny shook her head, tied the gauze in place, and turned to go into the bedroom. By the time she finished drying her hair, Simon had finished showering. He wrapped his arms around her waist and leaned in, trying to kiss her. She turned her head to the side, dodging the heated kiss. Her voice flat. I'm on my period. I want to rest early. Simon Zhao didn't push it further. He tucked her in gently and turned off the light. The next day was bright and clear. Jenny was washing up when she heard noisy voices downstairs. When she finished and came out, she saw Abigail Sue at the door with a group of people. Simon stood by the doorway, frowning, his voice back to its usual irritated tone. What are you doing here? Before Abigail could speak, a few of his buddies came up, laughing. Abby said you were her knight in shining armor yesterday. She's really grateful, so she insisted on thanking you in person. Before the words finished, Abigail theatrically produced a large bouquet of flowers and a gift in fancy wrapping. Simon, thank you for helping me yesterday. Just a little token of appreciation. Simon didn't reach out to take them, but his expression did soften quite a bit. Noticing this, Abigail handed the flowers directly to Jenny, her tone anything but polite. These are Juliet roses, Simon's favorite. Could you help put them in a vase? Hearing this, Simon frowned slightly, a coldness in his voice. Don't put your preferences on me. Also, Jenny is my wife. Don't talk to her like she's your maid. The room fell silent at those words. Only Jenny remained calm. She looked at the vivid roses in her hands. It was the first time she learned their name. Juliet roses? So Abigail liked them. No wonder Simon had spent a fortune cultivating the specific variety in the greenhouse. But Jenny said nothing. She handed the bouquet to the nearby housekeeper with a few soft instructions. Please bring down those vases from the display cabinet upstairs. Abigail's gaze toward her turned sharp, full of implication. Jenny pretended not to notice. She carried her breakfast to the balcony. With just a window between them, she could clearly hear the conversation in the living room. Simon, aren't these the origami cranes I used to fold back in middle school? You kept them in a crystal box? You like them that much? I'll make you another batch tomorrow. What's this Barbie doll set doing here? I remember throwing it in the trash. Did you dig it back out? Oh, this leaf, didn't we pick it up at Mountain? You actually made it into a bookmark and kept it all this time. Hearing Abigail's delighted discoveries, like she was on a treasure hunt, Jenny recalled the first time she came to this villa and asked Simon about those things. They're gifts from my cousin in kindergarten, he had said casually. She had believed him completely back then, so much so that she missed the complexity in his eyes. The love and hate, the nostalgia and unwillingness. All of it tied to love. Chapter 5. After a noisy morning, Abigail was the one who offered to treat everyone. Simon Zhao turned her down with just one sentence. No need. If you're done making a scene, please leave. But Abigail acted as if she hadn't heard him at all. She grabbed his hand and started pulling him toward the door. Some of Simon's buddies, afraid he wouldn't go, casually pulled Jenny along too, and the whole group left together. They drove to a hot spring resort. Jenny rarely socialized with them, so she struggled to fit in. Not that she wanted to. She simply sat in a corner, quietly watching everyone drink and laugh, lost in their rowdy fun. Simon noticed her discomfort and walked over, intending to pour her a glass of juice. She reached out to take it, but he abruptly turned and walked into the crowd. Abigail had just brought a glass of whiskey to her lips when Simon snatched it away. Then, a sharp voice rang out through the room. You're allergic to alcohol, and you still try to drink? Are you trying to kill yourself? Abigail blinked at him with an innocent look. I thought it was juice. I grabbed the wrong glass. That's all. Why are you so mad? Then she casually took the juice from his other hand and smiled sweetly. Thanks. Simon's hand tightened slightly, but in the end, he said nothing and walked back to where Jenny sat, handing her the glass in his hand. Jenny looked at the unsettled man in front of her and the amber liquid in the glass, clearly alcohol, and didn't take it. She picked up her bag and stood up, speaking calmly. I don't drink. I'm going to the hot springs. Only then did Simon realize he'd handed her the wrong glass. He had been so distracted thinking about Abigail that he gave her whiskey instead of juice. He wanted to explain, but Jenny walked off too quickly. He didn't get the chance. The warm water relaxed Jenny's tired nerves. Leaning against the wall, surrounded by rising steam, she felt sleepy and gradually dozed off. Perhaps because she was used to the noise, she didn't hear the knocking at the door. Simon called her name several times with no response, growing worried, and pushed the door open. Seeing her dozing in the water, his heart skipped a beat. He immediately jumped into the hot spring and lifted her into his arms. Jenny stirred groggily, and, feeling the shift in weight, instinctively wrapped her arms around his neck. The steam blurred everything. Their skin pressed together. It suddenly became intimate. Simon couldn't help but lower his head toward her. Just as their breaths mingled, the sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment. Abigail burst in and froze at the sight in front of her, the smile on her face vanishing instantly. She bit her lip hard, shock and disappointment written all over her face, then turned and fled. Simon froze completely. His first instinct was to let go of Jenny and chase after Abigail. He only left one sentence behind. She misunderstood. I need to explain. Misunderstood? They were legally married even if someone saw them kiss. What needed to be explained? But Simon had been so stuck in the past, still playing the role of Abigail's boyfriend in his mind. People who once let themselves be tamed by love don't easily change that habit. Watching his retreating figure as he rushed off, Jenny let out a soft laugh, then her eyes reddened. She wrapped herself in a towel, opened the window for air, and saw Abigail storming off to her car. Just as she opened the door, Simon caught her wrist. Their tense voices drifted clearly into Jenny's ears. Jenny was asleep. I was afraid she'd catch a cold. Was it really necessary for you to get that upset? Yes. She's your wife, and I'm just your ex. I don't have the right to be angry, do I? Then go back to her. Why bother explaining anything to me? Abigail, must you twist everything like this? What did I say that wasn't true? And just like that, the argument ended on a sour note. Abigail, eyes red, shook off his hand and sped away in her car. Simon stood there in a daze for a few seconds, then got into his own car and drove after her, watching the road settle into silence again. Dust still floating in the air. Jenny turned back inside without a word. When she finished changing and stepped out, a few of Simon's friends rushed over. Anxious. Sis-in-law, something's wrong. Simon and Abigail just got into a car accident. Chapter 6. By the time the group arrived at the hospital, they saw Simon waiting outside the operating room. He was soaked in blood, cold sweat dripping down his forehead, and his eyes filled with panic and helplessness. It was the first time Jenny had ever seen him in such a disheveled, broken state. His friends quickly rushed up, demanding to know what had happened. Simon grabbed his hair in anguish, his voice thick with regret and pain. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have said those things and made her angry. I shouldn't have let her leave on her own. She got into the accident just to spite me." Hearing him take all the blame, Jenny's lashes trembled slightly. So those were just words spoken out of anger, then what was the truth? Had he been waiting all this time for her return, hoping for reconciliation? Maybe so. Jenny didn't want to dwell on it any further. Just then, a nurse walked out with a stern expression. "The patient has lost a lot of blood, and the blood bank is running low. Anyone here with O-type blood, please come forward, we need an emergency donation." The guys looked at each other, none of them spoke. They were all AB type. Only Simon was O. Without a word, he took off his coat, changed into sterile scrubs, and followed the nurse inside. Minutes dragged by like hours. Half an hour later, the nurse came out supporting Simon, whose face was deathly pale. No one knew how much blood he'd given, he had no strength left. His head spun, and he collapsed right into Jenny's arms. But the nurse didn't leave. She asked again, her voice tense. "The patient is slowly stabilizing, but we still need 400 cubic centimeters more. Can you contact any O-type friends?" Everyone had already called their contacts while waiting. No one found a match. As silence fell, Simon Zhao forced himself to stand up, face tight with anxiety. "Just 400 cubic centimeters? I'll do it." The nurse turned around, stunned. "You already gave 600 cubic centimeters. You're seriously going to keep going?" His friends' faces changed. They all rushed forward to stop him. "Simon, enough. I'll have my assistant ask around at the company. Maybe someone there has O-type and can help." But Simon shook his head, his tone unrelenting. "Abby can't wait that long." As he spoke, he rolled up his sleeve, revealing the bruised puncture mark on his arm. Seeing him like this, so stubborn, Jenny finally couldn't hold back. "The doctors are doing everything they can. They can request blood from other hospitals. You don't have to go this far." Simon paused for a moment but said nothing. He turned around and walked off, watching his figure disappear through the operating room doors. Everyone fell silent. His friends sighed deeply, their voices full of frustration. Whenever it's about Abigail, Simon loses his damn mind. Remember when he got into a fight for her and injured his leg? Spent 3 months in the hospital and still went after the guy who hit him right after discharge. Exactly. In high school, he bet someone he could skydive from 5,000 meters just to get her that necklace she liked. The gear failed midair, he almost died. And now he's throwing his life away again. Damn it. I really thought he still had a thing for Abby. So I helped push them back together. What a fool I was. They went on, completely forgetting that Jenny was still there. Listening to those stories, Jenny felt something inside her shift. Only now did she finally understand how ridiculous her thought was that day she stood up at the wedding. There's no such thing as the latecomer winning over the heart. Love is love. No love is no love. From the very beginning, she had bet on the wrong card. And so now, facing a game she had completely lost, she accepted it. No one knew how much time had passed when the red light above the operating room finally went off. The doctor came out pushing 2 stretchers. Everyone tensed and rushed over, wiping sweat from his brow. The doctor glanced at the unconscious Simon and sighed. They're a couple, right? It's rare to see someone so devoted these days. Jenny was the last one standing behind, her gaze falling under the harsh overhead light. She let out a silent, bitter laugh. Chapter 7. It wasn't until noon the next day that Simon finally woke up groggily. His mind hadn't fully cleared, and the first name out of his mouth was Abigail's. Was her surgery successful? How is she? Has she woken up yet? Seeing how anxious he was, Jenny, who had stayed up all night, nodded with a hoarse voice. The doctor said it's nothing serious. With a few months of rest, she'll be fine. Hearing that, Simon finally felt a weight lift off his chest. Still, he was uneasy. He threw off the blanket and tried to get out of bed, saying he needed to see her with his own eyes. No matter how Jenny tried to stop him, he wouldn't listen. In the end, it was the nurse who had just come to give him N4 who managed to hold him back. He glanced at the hanging bag of medicine, his eyes showing worry, his heart clearly still full of Abigail. After a moment's thought, his gaze landed on the fruit basket on the nightstand. A perfect excuse. Jenny, I called Abigail Sue's parents yesterday. They flew back overnight and should be at the hospital by now. Can you take the fruit basket over? Say hello for me, and check how she's doing. Jenny stared at him for a long moment before quietly replying, okay. She picked up the fruit basket and left the room. Abigail was staying upstairs. Jenny was just about to knock when she realized the door was ajar. Through the gap, she saw Abigail curled up sweetly in the arms of a man she didn't recognize, her voice full of affection. Diego, didn't you say you were going to introduce me to your parents? Why did you come alone? I wanted to bring them, but since you're still recovering, it's not the right time. Once you're discharged, I'll take you to meet them, okay? Jenny's hand tightened around the basket. Abigail had a boyfriend, and they were already talking about meeting the parents? Just then, the doctor came for his rounds and pushed open the door, startling the couple inside. Abigail looked up and saw Jenny. Her face changed instantly. What are you doing here? Jenny didn't answer. She put the fruit basket down on the floor and turned to leave. Abigail, still not fully recovered, chased after her and grabbed her at the stairs. Are you going to run back and tattle to Simon? Jenny turned, looking at the fleeting panic on her face, her voice cold. If you already have a boyfriend, why are you still clinging to Simon? At that, Abigail raised her eyebrows and quickly regained her composure. Because I want to play both of them, toy with their feelings, and enjoy their devotion to me. Isn't it obvious? You really have to trample all over his feelings like that? Seeing how upset she was, Abigail laughed and spoke with pride. I have the charm to make them both crazy for me, even someone like Simon, the golden boy. So what? You jealous? Why not just admit it? If I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll teach you how. Her smug arrogance left Jenny speechless. The silence only made Abigail more pleased with herself. She looked Jenny up and down, her gaze finally landing on the wedding ring on her finger. You're just someone who picked up my leftovers. Who are you to challenge me? Let me tell you something. Back then, I didn't go abroad. I was just drunk, fooling around with two seniors all night and couldn't get out of bed the next day. If Simon hadn't married you out of spite, you never would have become Mrs. Zhao. Jenny's anger, long suppressed, erupted in that instant. She couldn't help but raise her hand and slap Abigail across the face. It wasn't hard, but Abigail stumbled and fell down the stairs as if she'd been struck by lightning. Jenny hadn't even processed what had happened when Simon, just out of the elevator, rushed over and shoved her aside. He quickly ran down the stairs and scooped up Abigail, her body bruised and battered, eyes filled with pain. His gaze toward Jenny was laced with fury. She didn't do anything to you. Why did you have to hit her so hard? Abigail deliberately showed off the red handprint on her cheek and cried pitifully in his arms. Forget it, Simon. Maybe Jenny's just upset that I'm your ex. I don't blame her. Let's go. That one sentence sealed Jenny's lips. All her explanations stuck in her throat. Seeing the darkening look on his face, she knew, no matter what she said now, it would be useless. Her silence, in Simon's eyes, was as good as admitting guilt. Disappointed, he looked away and carried Abigail off without even sparing her a single glance. Chapter 8. After leaving the hospital, Jenny received a call from the agency. Her visa had been approved. She picked up all her documents and began packing. The calendar on the desk lost a page each day, quickly nearing its end. This year was almost over, and so was her time in the city where she had lived for over 20 years. During that week, Simon didn't come home even once. But Abigail? She sent a string of provocative messages every single day. 7 days before departure, she sent a video, Simon kneeling on one knee, gently massaging her calf, his every move filled with tenderness. Jenny watched as she tossed every item she had ever bought for him into the trash. 5 days before, Abigail sent photos. Simon had delivered a whole box of jewelry and personally slipped a ring onto her finger. Jenny, without hesitation, smashed their wedding photo to pieces and threw the fragments into the fire. 3 days before, it was a voice recording. Simon, even in his sleep, was murmuring Abigail's name, his voice filled with affection and sincerity. Jenny packed up every gift he had given her during their marriage and sent them all to charity. The villa that she once called home slowly became empty. Her few pieces of luggage were now ready. The housemaids, seeing this quiet process of letting go, grew worried and asked her several times what was going on. She smiled lightly, her tone calm. I'm just getting divorced. Did the mister agree? Did he? Jenny didn't know, but she figured if Simon saw that divorce agreement now, he would probably be quite pleased. After all, at this point, his heart and eyes were entirely filled with Abigail. 2 days before, Abigail sent another message. This time, the focus wasn't Simon, but his parents. In the photo, the three of them were gathered cheerfully around a hospital bed. Jenny looked at the picture and felt nothing. Still, she didn't reply. Instead, she opened her contacts list and deleted Abigail, Simon, and everyone else connected to them. On the day of her departure, the season's first snow fell. Jenny carried all the journals and unsent love letters she had sorted the night before out into the garden. The orange flames lit up her face, turning all her youthful confessions into ashes. She lifted her head, watching the snowflakes drift down, wondering how long it would take for the snow to cover the gray remains. She was lost in thought when the tightly shut gates suddenly opened. Simon, long absent, had finally returned, hurriedly. He glanced at her crouching on the ground, then stepped inside the house. When he came back out, he paused beside her. Seeing the pale pink envelopes, his mind involuntarily recalled that letter from the reunion. The heart that had been angry for so long finally began to soften. I've been busy lately. In a few days, when things settle down, let's talk properly. Talk? About divorce? Jenny gave a faint smile, looking up at him, her voice detached. No need. The thing you wanted most. I already gave it to you a month ago. The thing? What thing? Simon was just about to ask when his phone chimed. He opened it and smiled, eyes and brows lit with joy. Seeing his expression, Jenny threw the last few love letters into the fire and stood up. Her flowing dress blocked the flames behind her. Simon finished replying to his messages. The letters had turned to ash. He forgot what he had wanted to ask. Jenny walked him to the door herself and opened the car door for him. A cold wind swept through. Seeing how thinly dressed she was, Simon gently told her to go back inside before she caught a chill. But Jenny insisted on staying at the door to see him off. Through the window, he saw her raise her hand and say something softly. He didn't catch the words, but figured it was the usual drive safe. He'd heard it countless times over the past 3 years, so he didn't give it much thought. The car started and soon disappeared down the street. Jenny stood alone in the snow for a long while before heading upstairs, putting on her coat, and rolling her suitcase downstairs. The snow was getting heavier, falling onto her hair at a distance. It looked like strands of white. A taxi waited outside the villa. Before getting in, she looked back one last time, and softly repeated what she had whispered earlier. Goodbye. Our city, for good. Goodbye. Simon Zhao, for good. Chapter 9. Simon drove straight to the hospital. Today was Abigail's discharge day. Last night, she insisted on wanting to look at her childhood photos, so he had gone back especially to bring them. Carrying the heavy bag to the elevator, he brushed past a man he didn't recognize. There was a familiar, faint perfume scent on the man. It was Abigail's favorite fragrance. The man had just come out of her room. Was he a friend of hers? Simon felt a twinge of doubt, but the elevator arrived quickly, and he didn't dwell on it. He pressed the button for the 7th floor. As soon as she saw him, Abigail beamed with a bright smile. The two of them flipped through the photo album together, reminiscing about old times. Talking about their childhood soon made Simon forget everything else. By noon, the Sue family arrived to take Abigail home. Upon seeing him, they immediately expressed their gratitude. Simon politely returned the gesture, speaking with humility. Abby getting hurt. I can't escape responsibility. Taking care of her is the least I can do. Upon hearing that, Abigail gently patted his hand. I told you, it's not your fault, Simon. I even explained everything to my parents yesterday. Don't keep blaming yourself, okay? Mr. Sue nodded in agreement. These years, her mother and I have been buried in work. If it weren't for you taking care of Abby, who knows how she might have turned out. We should be thanking you. Abigail walked up to Simon and was just about to act cute when Mrs. Sue gently pulled her back. You're both older now, and you already have your own family. Abigail's still being immature, Always clinging to you, but don't take it the wrong way. We'll make sure to guide her properly so she won't bother you anymore." The room instantly fell silent. Simon understood the subtext. His breathing hitched for a moment, then returned to normal quickly. The smile on his lips faded too, leaving only politeness and distance. Abigail's expression also changed, but she pretended not to understand what her mother meant and smiled cheerfully at Simon, trying to steer the conversation elsewhere. All right. Simon and I grew up together. What's all this about bothering? He even promised to drive me home. Didn't you?" Simon looked up, just about to reply, but when he saw the meaningful gazes of the two elders, his words changed midway. "I did say that, but my secretary just told me there's something urgent at work. Since you're here now, I won't trouble you further." With that, he didn't stay any longer and turned to leave. Before he got far, Mrs. Sue called out and handed him the photo album. "Simon, back then, it was Abby who let you down. She was young and didn't know how rare true feelings are. Don't take it to heart." Seeing the apologetic expression of the elder who had watched him grow up, Simon gently shook his head. "Auntie, I've already let go of everything from the past. I don't resent Abby. You don't have to worry." Mrs. Sue sighed, her eyes full of regret as she looked at him. "It's Abby's loss, and maybe fate never intended for you two to be husband and wife. I heard from your mother that the girl you married is very kind and understanding, and that your relationship is going well. Cherish her. She's the one worth your heart, the one who's meant to grow old with you." Chapter 10. Simon understood that Mrs. Sue meant well. He also knew that his story with Abigail had already ended long ago, on that wedding day when, out of spite, he announced he'd marry someone else. Over the past 3 years, he had truly tried, to forget the past and live a good life with Jenny. But how could he let go of someone he'd loved for 18 years? Just like that? So when Abigail came back from abroad and clung to him time after time, he eventually softened. Even if they could no longer be lovers, he thought, at least they could still be friends. Holding on to that idea, he allowed himself to indulge again and again, finding reasons to be near her. To be honest, every time Abigail cried and said she still loved him, he was moved. But those moments were fleeting, like ripples stirred by the wind on the surface of a lake. They soon faded without a trace. Each time he was about to fall, he would remember Jenny was his wife. Again and again, he wandered through this maze, unable to find a way out, until he heard those words today, like a revelation. Clearing his fogged mind, he thought of Jenny standing in the early snow, watching him leave. A warm feeling quietly surged in his heart. Simon bowed deeply to Mrs. Sue, his voice filled with genuine sincerity. "Thank you for telling me all this. I understand now." After leaving the hospital, Simon went back to the Zhao family's old house. Mother Zhao called him into the study, her tone unusually serious. "When you first got married, I thought Jenny's family background wasn't good enough for you, and I did have my opinions. But these 3 years, seeing how well she cares for you, how she keeps the house running so smoothly, and how considerate she is to us, I let go of my prejudice. You're not young anymore. Some things need to be said. Let the past go. Stop clinging to it. You have a good eye. You chose a wonderful wife. It's time to settle down and live your life properly. Marriage is not like a love affair. It's like a pot of porridge, slow cooked over time. It needs patience and steady care. You and Jenny didn't have much foundation before marriage, and you were both young. That's why communication is key. Say things clearly before misunderstandings grow. Do you understand?" Simon hadn't expected his usually reserved mother to speak so earnestly about household matters, but he knew everything she said was right. He bowed his head respectfully. "You're right. I know what I should do." Mother Zhao nodded in satisfaction, then took out a box and pushed it toward him. "This bracelet was given to me by your grandmother when I got married. Take it and give it to Jenny. The day after tomorrow is your father's birthday. Bring her back home. We'll have a family dinner." Simon opened the box. Inside were 2 jade bangles of imperial green. He froze for a moment. Suddenly, his mind drifted back to that stormy wedding 3 years ago. After Abigail announced the cancellation by phone, the guests from both families left in a hurry, faces grim. He had stood alone on the stage, heart utterly shattered, and picked up the microphone, venting emotions that had been buried deep for far too long. He didn't even remember exactly what he said that day. Until Jenny stood up. Until his impatient brothers pushed her backstage and she reappeared before his eyes. The wedding march played. She wore a slightly oversized wedding dress, walking toward him one determined step at a time. Together, they stood before the curious and judging eyes of thousands. She showed no fear, no hesitation. Perhaps it was her unyielding courage that stirred something inside Simon's dead heart. Even though he didn't know the name of the girl who became his bride, he had made up his mind to cherish the woman who slipped on his ring, to never betray the hand that reached out to him in the darkest moment of his life. Chapter 11. Simon placed the box containing the bracelet into the glove compartment. Before closing it, his eyes caught sight of a document inside. He frowned, trying to remember when it had been put there. But after thinking it over for a while, he still had no clue. Just as he was about to take it out for a look, Abigail called. "Simon, my parents just left. Some of my friends heard I got discharged and want to throw a little celebration. Are you done with work? Want to come hang out?" This time, Simon didn't hesitate. He rejected her outright. Abigail's voice immediately turned dejected, and just as she was about to act cute, he quickly found an excuse, saying he had a meeting. After hanging up, he closed the drawer and drove home. The usually lively villa felt unusually quiet today. Simon looked around and noticed a lot of things missing from the living room. The tie he'd left on the coffee table months ago, the cup on the dining table, the throw pillow on the sofa, all were little, seemingly insignificant items Jenny had bought. In the past, he never even noticed them, but for some reason, this time he felt a sharp sense that something wasn't right. He stopped the housekeeper and asked, "Why are so many things gone from the house?" "Madam threw them away," the elderly housekeeper answered respectfully. Then, after hesitating and glancing at Simon's face, he spoke again. "Sir, are you really going through with the div?" "Simon, in this snowy weather, I knew you'd be at home. How long has it been since you hung out with us?" "Huh? Come on, let's go grab a drink." A few young men barged in with arms slung around each other, dragging Simon out without giving him a chance to say no. And just like that, the word divorce never made it out of the housekeeper's mouth. Buried under the noise and laughter, though they called it a drinking session, Simon's friends, mindful of his health, only dared to hand him glasses of warm water. He watched them playing games, took a few sips, then pulled out his phone and typed a message to Jenny. "Did you go out today? Where did you go? What time will you be back? Send me the address, I'll come pick you up. It's snowy and slippery outside. Be careful not to fall." Just as he was about to hit send, one of the guys, who had just finished a call, suddenly changed expression. He jumped up and grabbed Simon, shouting to the others at the table, his voice urgent. "Let's go! New place, something big's going down." Chapter 12. Everyone was left utterly confused by his seemingly random and disconnected words. But the moment someone mentioned drama, the entire group got excited and eagerly piled into the car. All the way there, everyone kept asking where they were headed, but he remained tight-lipped, only occasionally glancing at Simon. Their destination turned out to be a bar none of them had ever visited before. Just before they got out of the car, that same friend shoved Simon to the front and muttered some strange words. "Simon, I've been hearing whispers for a while now. I wanted to make sure before I said anything. What you're about to see, don't blame me. I really am doing this for your own good." They were brothers, men who had grown up like family. Hearing him speak so seriously made Simon's expression gradually turn solemn. Looking at the bar's entrance just a few steps away, he hesitated, then slowly raised his hand to push the door open. Inside, the entire bar came into view, a blaze of neon, pounding music, and a pulsating dance floor filled with people caught in the throes of the DJ's beats. The white spotlight landed squarely on a couple at the center of the stage, locked in a deep, passionate kiss. Even from a distance, Simon instantly recognized Abigail. She was being held tightly by the man in front of her, her face flushed unnaturally red, hands exploring his back with flirtatious intent. She looked nothing like the mischievous, spoiled heiress everyone knew. She was someone else entirely. In that instant, the 7 or 8 people standing at the entrance fell into stunned silence. Inside, however, the crowd only got rowdier. "Damn, Fresh out of the hospital and already going hard. They've been kissing for half an hour. How are they still breathing? Come on. What's wrong with lovers showing some PDA? You jealous or what? I swear. Abby's been with this new guy for like half a year now. Still not bored? Think it'll last longer than it did with Simon? You can't figure out a girl like Abby. She's just playing. That's all. Look at Simon. Tossed him aside for 3 years. And now when she's bored, she's dangling him again like some damn lapdog. Hearing those crude, mocking words from Abigail's friends, Simon's buddies exploded with rage. They pushed through the crowd. One cut the music. Another flipped the lights on. And the rest stormed the stage, surrounding the couple who had been locked in that steamy kiss. The sudden chaos shattered the mood. Abigail, catching her breath, stared in shock at the group of men now standing around her. Her face twisted. She quickly scanned the room, didn't see Simon, and sighed in brief relief, then turned coldly to glare at the uninvited intruders. What are you doing here? I didn't invite you. What do you want? They were already furious. Her tone only fanned the flames. It's just a bar. You can come but we can't. Need an invitation now? What's wrong? Scared we'll rat you out to Simon? Hiding in here playing honeymoon with your new man? Not wanting to lose face in front of her friends, or her boyfriend, Abigail shot back without thinking. Scared? What would I be scared of? So I'm dating again, what? Simon's gonna control who his ex is with now? He's a married man. Shouldn't he mind his own business? That drew a round of slow claps and whistles from the group. The fact they weren't angry anymore, only smiling coldly, made Abigail's heart tighten. Something was wrong. She was about to ask what this was all about when one of them cut her off, acting like the heartbroken ex all this time. Huh? Dropping the act now. Abigail? You've been with this guy for half a year, and yet you still came running back to Simon? Why lead him on while sleeping with someone else? Abigail's boyfriend also started to catch on. His face darkened. Abigail hadn't expected things to blow up like this tonight. She could feel it spiraling out of control, panic rising. She blurted out the worst thing she could have said. Didn't he come begging me to get back together? He's been clinging to me like a damn simp. I can't shake him off. I got tired of him 3 years ago. That's why I bailed on the wedding. It had nothing to do with going abroad. I'm only into Diego now. So those are your true feelings? The men stared her down, their voices sharp. Abigail lifted her chin like a proud peacock, refusing to back down. Of course, even if Simon were here, I'd say it all to his face. With that bold declaration, the room fell into silence. Her friends slowly stepped aside, clearing a path. Seeing them move in unison, Abigail's right eyelid twitched violently. She turned her head, and there he was, standing at the entrance, the familiar figure she hadn't seen in days. And just like that, her chest went cold. Those in the crowd, who had been watching the drama unfold, turned their eyes in the same direction as her. Chapter 13. 3 years later, Simon once again became the center of everyone's attention, but his face, unexpectedly, showed no expression, none of the anger, disappointment, pain, or embarrassment that others might have imagined appeared on his face. There was only calm acceptance, like someone who had seen it all, and the peace that follows the final curtain call. Across the vast crowd, he looked at the pale-faced woman standing on the stage, the woman he had loved for so many years but could never truly have, the bride who had once left him standing alone at the altar. Now, she suddenly felt like a complete stranger. It felt as if he was meeting her for the first time. Yet, he had known her for 18 years. I listened to every word. Thank you for not lying to me anymore and finally telling me the truth. Abigail. Among the hushed whispers, Simon's voice was calm and even. It didn't sound like a confrontation, more like small talk about the weather. A few of his friends on stage, seeing this reaction, suddenly recalled the first time Jenny had shown up before them 3 years ago. She'd worn the exact same expression, spoken in the exact same tone, with the exact same number of words. I'm currently single. If you don't mind, I can be your bride. Simon. After calmly announcing this to the crowd, Simon lowered his eyes and curved his lips into a faint smile. He thought of Jenny. It was only now that he truly understood the pressure Jenny must have felt that day, yet still stood bravely by his side. Such a quiet and cautious person. Yet she had done something so bold for him, and it had taken him 3 whole years to recognize the fierce and burning love she had carried for him. Luckily, it still wasn't too late. Simon no longer intended to waste time on things unworthy of it. He turned around and left. Without hesitation, step by step, he walked away with absolute certainty. Back in the car, Simon opened his phone and sent out the message he had written but never sent. Ding! He thought Jenny had replied instantly and glanced down. In the midst of white and green, the bright red exclamation mark stood out. He blinked rapidly as he saw the friend request verification screen. The username, the avatar, everything confirmed it was Jenny. But why had she deleted and blocked him without a word? Simon couldn't understand. He tried sending more messages, still blocked. His once calm heart was suddenly full of ripples. Logic told him something must have happened, but his emotions desperately tried to smother that thought. Searching for reasons to reassure him, she'd sent him off this morning just like always. Her expression seemed normal. She even waved goodbye. Maybe she just accidentally hit the wrong button? Simon kept trying to convince himself, but the way he slammed his foot on the gas, speeding away with wild urgency, betrayed the panic inside him. He ran 10 red lights in a row just to make it home before dark. The house looked the same as when he left, quiet. Too quiet. Not like the home it used to be. He saw the kitchen light on and thought Jenny was inside making him a hangover soup. He rushed in. Sure enough, soup was on the stove, but it was the maid watching the pot. Startled by his arrival, she quickly greeted him and clumsily poured him a bowl. Simon hadn't been drinking, but he took a sip anyway. The soup tasted off. Simon frowned. Wasn't this soup usually made by Madame? The maid's eyes went wide with panic, and she quickly apologized. Sorry, sir. Madame taught me how to make it before she moved out, but I didn't write it down. Please wait a bit, I'll make a new one for you. Out of everything she said, Simon only caught a few words. Before she moved out, his pounding heart sank straight to the bottom of a dark abyss. When did she move out? This morning, right after you left. Chapter 14. Living room, bedroom, study, bathroom. Simon searched every corner of the house, but there wasn't a single trace of Jenny left. The old butler, drawn by the noise, arrived and looked at Simon's panicked, hollow expression. Finally, he asked the question that had been stuck in his chest for days. Sir, why did you agree to divorce the madam? Divorce? Hearing that word, Simon felt the world spin around him. Jenny had never said anything about a divorce. Why did everyone seem to think it was his idea? He desperately tried to recall the events of the past few weeks, searching for some kind of clue. Elena's strange behavior at the café, the plane ticket he didn't have time to check, the vague words Jenny said this morning, the thing you wanted most. I already gave it to you? That one line, never explained, now filled him with growing unease. He immediately had his assistant look into Jenny's whereabouts and started driving around the city himself to search for her. He first went to her old house, where she had lived before the marriage, only to find the windows sealed and the door locked tight. The neighbors told him she'd come by yesterday, threw out a bunch of stuff, and looked like she was about to go far away. Just then, a message came in from his assistant, President Zhao. I found a flight Mrs. Zhao booked half a month ago. She flew to San Francisco this morning. She should have arrived by now. So Jenny wasn't just moving, she was leaving the country. The realization hit Simon with a wave of cold dread. He couldn't understand why Jenny had suddenly decided on divorce, or why she left without a word. Hadn't it always been her dream to stand by his side? As his wife? After asking his assistant to book a flight to the U.S., Simon returned to his car. He didn't start the engine. He just leaned back in his seat, staring blankly at the chat interface where he had been blocked. His phone, on the brink of dying, beeped a low battery warning. He opened the glove box to get a charger. His eyes swept past a familiar document envelope. This time, he finally opened it. The moment he saw the words divorce agreement, Simon's hands began to tremble, but he forced himself to remain calm, flipping through it page by page, until he reached the last page and saw his own signature. He froze. Why was his name on a divorce agreement? And why couldn't he remember signing it? His mind raced. The agreement had been written by Jenny, and the only time she'd asked him to sign something was a month ago. One evening, when she said she had a gift for him, he didn't even look. It had been a hectic day. He signed it without reading and left. She had placed the agreement in his car and reminded him several times to look at it. 1 whole month. The agreement was already legally effective, and he hadn't opened it once. Those 10 or so light pages now felt like a crushing weight in his hands. And at last, Simon understood why Jenny had left. She had sensed his uncertainty in their marriage. She believed, deep down, that he would eventually return to Abigail and file for divorce. So, she chose to leave first. That gift she mentioned was this divorce agreement. She had decided to give him his freedom, to fulfill the longing he hadn't let go of for years. Chapter 15. When the plane landed in San Francisco. It was just the afternoon. Outside the arrival gate, Jenny saw someone she hadn't met in a long time, her former professor, Victoria. Back in Jenny's senior year, Victoria had left a university to start her own business. After 3 years of hard work, she had successfully established herself in Silicon Valley. It was Victoria's job offer that prompted Jenny to move abroad. This remarkable woman, just in her early 30s, had always been approachable, even back when she taught. Now in the working world, she was even more down to earth. The moment she spotted Jenny, she waved with warmth. "Jenny, long time no see." Pushing her suitcase, Jenny walked over with a bright smile. "Professor Yi, it's been a long time. I've already quit teaching. No need to call me professor. If you don't mind, just call me Vicky from now on." Her warm and candid personality brought Jenny a sense of comfort in this foreign land. Not wanting to be overly formal, Jenny naturally responded with a cheerful Vicky. Victoria smiled and hooked her arm around Jenny's, leading her to the car. On the way home, the two caught up on old times, classroom memories, partings, and send-offs. Their chat was filled with nostalgia. "Jenny, 6 months ago when you graduated from grad school, I invited you to the U.S., and you declined. What made you change your mind?" Jenny's eyes flickered slightly but quickly returned to calm. After thinking for a few seconds, she spoke carefully. "Back then, I hadn't figured out what I wanted to do next. And because of some family matters, I didn't want to leave the country. But now I've thought it through. Since I don't know where the road leads, I might as well take the first step. Maybe along the way, I'll discover a new dream." Victoria, having been through similar confusion, completely understood. She offered Jenny some gentle encouragement. "That's life, one step at a time. Look at me. I was a university teacher for years before realizing the ivory tower wasn't for me. That's why I chose to see more of the world. You're still young. It's normal to feel lost. But as long as you take that first brave step, I'm sure you'll find your path." With Victoria as a living example, Jenny felt much more at ease. After parking, Victoria brought her to the apartment. It was a standard 2-bedroom layout, with south-facing windows full of sunlight and a supermarket downstairs. The tidy and cozy place instantly swept away most of Jenny's fatigue. Victoria showed her around, explained all the essentials in detail, then took her out for dinner. After the meal, they went to the supermarket to pick up some daily necessities. Once everything was settled, Victoria left her address and let Jenny rest. Jenny took a shower, lay on the bed, and looked out at the darkening sky. Everything felt surreal. Just yesterday, she was still in the villa in her city, wrapped in a blanket watching the snow outside. And now, she was on the other side of the ocean, starting a new, solo life. The room was quiet, lost in thought. She soon drifted off. Jenny had a dream. In it, she was sitting at Simon's wedding. But this time, Abigail hadn't run away. She married him. Jenny watched them exchange rings, vowed to stay together for life. And at that moment, while they kissed to the cheers of the crowd, she quietly left the scene, back to the silent campus. Studied hard for 3 years. After graduation, she moved to America and started a new life. She never looked back. In her short lifetime, her only connection to Simon was those 4 years as classmates. After that, bridges were bridges, roads were roads. She was always just that nameless girl he couldn't remember. Maybe because the dream felt too real. When Jenny woke up the next day, she was still in a daze. She sat on the couch for a long time, unsure where reality ended and dreams began. It wasn't until noon, when a call from Victoria snapped her out of it completely. "Jenny, are you up yet? I'm downstairs. Wanna grab lunch together?" Chapter 16. Jenny found Victoria's car in the parking lot. She opened the passenger side door, and as she bent down to get in, she caught a glimpse of someone sitting in the back seat. Out of politeness, she didn't look closely, assuming Victoria would introduce them. She sat down and fastened her seatbelt. Before Victoria could speak, a familiar voice came from the back seat. "Did you rest well, Jenny?" Startled, Jenny snapped her head up. Through the rearview mirror, she saw a familiar face. It was Simon. Even though they hadn't seen each other in a day, he looked visibly worn, exhausted, as if he hadn't rested in a long time. But those eyes that looked at her were clear and resolute. Countless words rose to Jenny's throat, but in the end, she didn't know what to say, so she chose silence. The car became awkwardly quiet. A minute later, Victoria finally sensed something off. She turned around and glanced at Jenny, trying to lighten the mood. "Jenny, this is your old classmate, Simon. Don't you recognize him? He just landed and called me to catch up. I thought since you two were classmates, we could all have a meal together. You don't mind, do you?" Jenny did mind, but in front of Victoria, who had no idea what was going on between them, she had to keep calm. So she forced a smile and answered casually, "Vicky, whatever you arrange is fine. I'm just still a bit jet-lagged, feeling a little dizzy." Victoria smiled and nodded, telling her to relax, then turned to Simon. "Simon, are you okay? Do you want to rest first and meet us later?" Simon hadn't slept in over 30 hours, but he knew this wasn't the time to rest. He shook his head gently. "No need. All right then, the restaurant's already booked. You two didn't really interact much in college, right? Funny how fate works, you both end up running into each other here in San Francisco." Run into each other? Even with her head down, Jenny could feel the intense gaze from the back seat. She knew if Simon had come, it wasn't by coincidence. He, the heir of the Zhao Corporation, born with the world at his feet, surrounded by glory and admiration, had been handed divorce papers by an ordinary, invisible nobody like her. He must be unwilling to accept it. He must be upset. She closed her eyes and pressed her temples, trying to gather her thoughts for whatever confrontation lay ahead. Meanwhile, the conversation continued beside her. "Not quite a coincidence," Simon said calmly. "I came to San Francisco to handle something very important." Meeting Jenny was inevitable. From his tone, it sounded like they were close, but judging by Jenny's expression, they seemed like strangers. The confusion left Victoria a little baffled. "So, you're here for Jenny? Do you two stay in touch a lot after graduation? Close friends?" "Not really," Jenny answered before Simon could. Hearing that, Simon's gaze deepened, and his lips pressed into a thin line. "Well, for years of college together, even if not close now, you'll grow closer over time." "Oh, Simon, are you here in the States for work? Are you alone? Didn't bring your family? I heard you're married, and your wife was also one of your classmates, right?" Jenny's heartbeat quickened. She unconsciously clenched her hand. After a long pause, Simon finally responded, his voice slightly hoarse. "Yes, but not long ago. She filed for divorce. That's actually why I'm in the US, to take care of that." Victoria hadn't expected her casual question to touch on something so personal, and she immediately felt awkward. Jenny didn't want the topic to continue either, so she quickly changed the subject. "Vicky, are we going to a Western restaurant or Chinese? How much farther? I haven't eaten anything all day. I'm starving." Victoria shot her a grateful look and answered quickly, "Western. Just a few hundred meters more, we're almost there." Chapter 17. The meal lasted about an hour. Throughout, Victoria acted as a go-between, keeping the conversation going on both sides. Watching Jenny quietly focus on her food, Simon could only swallow down all the questions he'd kept bottled up for so long. Halfway through the meal, Victoria suddenly received an urgent call from work and had to leave early. What started as a friendly lunch between mentor and student suddenly turned into a face-off between a divorced couple. The atmosphere turned stiff in an instant. After Jenny finished her last piece of steak, Simon promptly handed her a napkin. She didn't take it. Instead, she stood up and pulled out a new one herself. Her voice was calm, but direct. "If you have anything to say, now's the time. Let's be clear." Simon's outstretched hand froze in midair as he met her gaze. It had only been a day since he last saw her, yet the woman before him felt entirely different from the gentle, compliant wife he remembered. He didn't know if she had changed, or if he had never really known the true Jenny. Thinking back on it, during their 3 years of marriage, aside from moments of physical intimacy, he had barely looked at her face, rarely noticed her emotional shifts. She had been like a still pond, calm and quiet, always there, just within reach whenever he turned around. Over time, he forgot where that pond had come from, or why it had stayed so still for so long, and just when he had grown used to its presence, that water suddenly began to move, unstoppably flowing toward a place beyond his reach. When he finally tried to catch up, he was shocked to realize that the pond wasn't as calm as he thought, and it certainly wasn't going to stay put for his convenience. All the things he thought he understood about her were nothing more than his own assumptions. Now, faced with this new, unfamiliar Jenny, Simon was at a loss, but he knew that her decision to divorce had everything to do with him. So, at the start of this conversation, he chose to apologize sincerely. "Jenny, I'm sorry. Over the past 3 years, I failed to be a good husband. I didn't give you the warmth of a real home. I neglected everything you did for me. I'm truly sorry." Jenny could tell that he meant what he said, but his long overdue apology didn't move her. She understood. From the very beginning, their relationship was built on a mistake. There was never going to be a happy ending. To expect someone who never loved you to build a home and live faithfully for a lifetime, that was a fantasy. Especially when that person had never truly let go of someone else. Her decision to file for divorce came from recognizing how foolish and naive she had been 3 years ago. She just wanted to correct her path. It had nothing to do with responsibility, the home's atmosphere, or her sacrifices. So, she answered him with one sentence. "I don't need your apology. Just submit the divorce papers and mail me the certificate. Cash on delivery is fine." Simon froze. On the plane here, he had believed there was still a chance. He'd spent the sleepless flight thinking of how to apologize and win her back. Only now did he realize just how resolute she was. Looking at her calm face, a flicker of panic crossed his eyes. His voice grew rushed. "Do we really have to divorce? Why?" Jenny looked at him directly, her tone firm and crystal clear. "I married you because I loved you. I'm divorcing you because I don't love you anymore. That's all." Chapter 18. After leaving the restaurant, Jenny didn't return home. Instead, she went to see Victoria. When Victoria saw her arrive alone, a trace of surprise crossed her face. "Where's Simon?" "He left after you did. Something came up. Since I'm starting work in a few days, I thought I'd come by to get familiar with everything." Victoria didn't think much of it. She had just finished her tasks too, so she warmly showed Jenny around the company. After the workday ended, they had dinner together before Jenny finally returned to her apartment. She opened her phone and saw a new contact request. It was from Simon. Suddenly, she remembered what he had said before parting ways. "Since you've made up your mind about the divorce, I'll respect your decision. I wasn't worthy of your love, and I'm sorry for disappointing you. But after 3 years of marriage, even if we part ways, can we still be friends?" Friends? What was the point of staying friends with Simon? Jenny couldn't see any. In her mind, it was best to part peacefully, go separate ways, and never cross paths again. So she didn't respond right away. It wasn't until 10 p.m., when she was about to go to bed, that she noticed Simon had sent another request. This time, with a message. "There are a few clauses in the divorce agreement I'd like to discuss with you." Since it was about the divorce, Jenny accepted instantly. Simon didn't waste time. He sent over the modified contract with the revised sections clearly marked in red. Jenny looked closely and realized that the asset division had been changed to a 50-50 split. In other words, after the divorce, she would receive half of Simon's entire fortune. It felt like money falling from the sky, but instead of excitement, Jenny felt uneasy. She quickly sent a voice message. "Let's stick with the original agreement. You don't need to give me so much. I'd feel guilty accepting it." Simon, as if he had expected this reaction, replied almost instantly. "I know you didn't marry me for money, and this isn't compensation. It's just what the law provides. It's your legal right. Don't overthink it." Jenny tried to explain further, but Simon kept giving the same answer. She was tired, so she let it go. Time passed. Jenny officially began her new job and slowly adapted to working life. A month later, she received the divorce certificate along with numerous real estate deeds, stock shares, and other assets. Staring at all the zeros in her bank account, Jenny didn't know what to do with it all, so she simply tucked it away and continued her life as if nothing had changed. The harsh winter passed, and spring arrived. As usual, Jenny went to work. As soon as she arrived, Victoria called her into the office for a meeting. The topic was a collaboration with several IT companies in country. They needed to assign an assistant to accompany Victoria on the trip back to negotiate the deal. Her eyes swept across the room and finally landed on Jenny. "Jenny, you'll come with me." Caught off guard, Jenny was stunned. She'd only been at the company for 1 quarter. She wasn't supposed to be entrusted with something so important, but since Victoria had chosen her, she had no choice but to accept. After the meeting, the two of them stayed behind. Victoria got straight to the point. "Jenny, although we'll be discussing with 4 companies during this trip, our main focus is on partnering with Zhao Group." Zhao? Hearing that name, Jenny felt a faint sense of realization. She looked at Victoria, uncertain. "Simon?" Victoria nodded. She hesitated, but ultimately decided to speak openly. "After that little dinner gathering, Simon asked to meet me again privately. It was during that meeting that the foundation for this project was set. He told me a few things about your situation, but I considered that your privacy, so I didn't bring it up. But now the project is reaching a critical stage, and I need everything to go smoothly. I'd like to ask you for a favor. Please come with me to help negotiate this project. I know it may be awkward, but I hope you'll understand." Chapter 19. Jenny didn't quite understand what Victoria meant. She was just a newcomer who had barely entered the company, with no background or connections. What good would it do to bring her along on such an important project? Was it just because she was Simon Zhao's ex-wife? That was the only explanation she could think of. But Simon didn't even like her. Their divorce had been clean and straightforward. He hadn't contacted her since. Why would Victoria think he'd compromise just for her? Not wanting to cause unnecessary misunderstandings, Jenny decided to be straightforward and honest. "Vicky, I didn't mention this before because I'm divorced now, and I didn't think it was relevant, but this project is a big deal. So I'll be blunt. My marriage to Simon was more like a fleeting encounter. He didn't love me. We had no real emotional bond. We parted on good terms. But that's all. As far as I know, he's someone who values relationships. Yes. But when it comes to business, he has a firm bottom line. If you think taking me along might increase our chances of success, well, I'm afraid I'll have to pour some cold water on that idea." Hearing someone speak so objectively about her own marriage was fascinating to Victoria. She motioned for Jenny to sit and couldn't help but ask, "Are you sure Simon doesn't have any feelings for you?" Jenny nodded quickly and firmly. Watching that confident expression, Victoria couldn't help but recall what Simon had said to her before he left San Francisco. "Professor Yi, Jenny and we're married. Or more accurately, we're in the middle of a divorce. I didn't do a good job in this marriage. She's disappointed in me, so she asked for a divorce. She's very firm about it, and I don't want to pressure her, so I agreed. But personally, I want to win her back. I just think we both need a little time and space right now. Jenny definitely won't be willing to go back with me. Could I trouble you to look after her for a while? As a token of my gratitude, I'd be willing to discuss collaboration on the RO project." Even now, Victoria could still clearly remember Simon's tired face and sincere tone. It was hard to believe that someone like him would willingly hand over a project that so many tech giants had been eyeing for a former wife he supposedly had no feelings for. But since Simon admitted there were issues between them, she didn't want to speculate further. So instead, she turned back to Jenny and simply asked for her input. "As for the project, don't overthink it. With me there, you'll be fine. I do want to bring you along partly out of personal interest, but also to help you grow. Just treat it as a normal business trip and follow protocol. Deal?" Having worked with Victoria for a while now, Jenny knew she was a straightforward person, not the kind to play games. Besides, this trip was a valuable opportunity. She didn't want to miss it. So after giving it some thought, she agreed. Their return to country was scheduled for a week later. Jenny kept busy with work while gradually packing her things. The closer the departure date came, the calmer she felt. Looking back now, the past seemed like a distant dream. Now that she'd woken up, she was finally clear-headed. She wouldn't dwell on the past anymore. As for Simon Zhao, he had simply returned to what he once was, just another old classmate. She already knew how to face him calmly when they met again. Chapter 20. Returning once again to this familiar city, Jenny's mindset had undergone a complete transformation. She pushed her luggage cart while chatting and laughing with Victoria as they exited the airport. As they walked, Victoria spotted her parents in the distance and waved excitedly. She introduced Jenny to them, and the elderly couple warmly invited her to come home with them. Knowing a family reunion would come with endless stories and emotional moments, Jenny politely declined so as not to intrude. After saying temporary goodbyes, she walked out of the terminal alone, only to find it was pouring outside. There weren't any taxis around. As she opened her ride-hailing app, a black car suddenly stopped in front of her. Instinctively, she looked up and saw Simon walking toward her under an umbrella. After months apart, he looked noticeably thinner, dressed in a dark green trench coat, tall and composed like a bamboo stalk swaying in the wind. Jenny hadn't expected to see him and froze in surprise. Simon stopped in front of her, his eyes filled with emotions she couldn't read. His voice was low and steady. "It's been a while. Jenny, how have you been?" She instinctively stepped back a few paces, putting distance between them, and replied coolly, "Fine." Her cold attitude made Simon Zhao feel a bit disheartened, but he knew this reaction was only natural. After all, they were just divorced. He quickly composed himself and glanced at the suitcase in her hand. "The rain's too heavy. Let me drive you to your hotel." Jenny looked at the screen that showed her ride had already been confirmed and shook her head. "No need. I've already called a car." "Then at least take the umbrella. Your things will get soaked otherwise." Jenny didn't understand why he was suddenly being so attentive. A strange feeling crept into her heart. "I don't need your help, and I don't think there's any reason for us to stay in contact anymore." "Mr. Zhao, don't you think so?" That line pierced straight into Simon's chest like a needle. His hand, hidden inside his sleeve, trembled slightly. His smile was forced. "Just because we divorced, does that mean we can't even be friends?" Jenny slipped her phone into her pocket and pulled out an umbrella from her bag. She glanced at the approaching car. "Even before we got married, we were just classmates. Now that we're divorced, let's go back to being just that. You and I, we've never belonged in the same world. There's no need to pretend to be friends." Not a trace of warmth in her voice. This time, it was Simon Zhao who froze. He watched as the driver helped her load her luggage into the trunk, watched as she opened the door, watched as she folded her umbrella and prepared to leave, and he felt something slipping further and further away. He couldn't help himself. He rushed forward and grabbed the car door before it could close. Amid the sharp rhythm of the falling rain, his voice rang out firm and steady. "I don't believe that we're from different worlds. Jenny, maybe you've heard countless people talk about your background, or criticize your decision to marry me, but I want you to know, I've never looked down on you. Not once have I ever thought you didn't deserve to stand by my side. You just accepted everything you had with grace and went after what you loved with courage. You don't need to feel inferior." In nearly a decade of living on her own, this was the first time Jenny had ever heard anyone say something like that. She turned her head, looked at him, and for once, gave him a genuine smile. "Thank you." Chapter 21. After putting down her luggage at the hotel, the rain had already stopped. Jenny grabbed her bag and rushed to the restaurant to meet up with Elena. The two best friends shared a warm hug and immediately began chatting about their recent lives. When Elena found out that Jenny had gotten half of Simon Zhao's assets, her jaw dropped so wide it could swallow a dinner plate. She pounced into Jenny's arms without a care for the stares of others, screaming in excitement. "Ah! My bestie is rich now. Damn, if I cling to your thigh, does that mean I won't have to worry for the rest of my life?" Jenny quickly covered her mouth, apologizing to the other disturbed customers, and dragged her into a private room. Once they were alone, Elena's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she whispered, "So, did the money hit your account?" "It did, but I don't dare spend it. It feels like some windfall that might vanish any second." Elena couldn't stand hearing that and gripped her hand, trying to knock some sense into her. "What do you mean windfall?" "That's your legal compensation. If Simon's so generous, then take it and use it. What are you ashamed of?" It's not like you forced him at knife point to marry you. That actually made sense. Seeing her friend slowly let go of her worries, Elena cheerfully snatched up the menu, didn't even glance at it, and handed it straight to the waiter. Whatever your most expensive Australian lobster thing is, bring me one. After flaunting that bit of luxury, she leaned back with pride and asked smugly, "How was my performance just now? Did it have the proper vibe?" Jenny gave her 2 thumbs up and teased her, "Pretty badass. I just wonder if President Lin will still be so confident when the bill shows up." "Hey, Jenny, I thought you were treating me. Or how about we split it?" After stuffing themselves, Elena was thoroughly satisfied, watching her glowing with happiness. Jenny called the waiter to settle the bill, but just as she was about to pay, a sharp and mocking voice rang out behind her. Well, if it isn't Jenny. The 2 girls turned their heads to see a crowd coming down the stairs. Most were university classmates, surrounding Abigail Sue as they headed toward them. Seeing the group approach, Elena leaned in and whispered gossip to Jenny. "Jenny, right after you went abroad, Abigail's multiple affairs drama exploded all over the internet. It got so messy, it even trended online. I heard it was Simon's buddies who leaked it." Her reputation tanked. She panicked and ran to Simon begging for a reunion. But he totally ignored her. You should have seen her face when he rejected her in front of everyone. It was hilarious. Just as they reached the table, Abigail seemed to catch bits of what they were saying. Her face turned dark. She glared at Jenny with fury in her voice. "Didn't you go abroad? Jenny? What are you doing back here? That's none of your business. What are you so proud of? Don't think just because you're back, you have a shot at getting back with Simon. He never cared about you before, and now he definitely doesn't." Jenny didn't understand why Abigail was still so hostile toward her, especially now that she and Simon were divorced. But she didn't want to argue. She paid the bill and pulled Elena, ready to leave. Her dismissive attitude only fueled Abigail's rage. She stepped in front of them, blocking the way. "You stole my wedding and took half of Simon's fortune. You're nothing but a scheming gold digger. What are you pretending for? Even with that money, look at you, still reeking of poverty. Don't come stinking up the place." Chapter 22. A few of Abigail's lackeys burst into laughter after hearing Jenny's words. Furious, Elena was about to argue with them, but Jenny quickly pulled her back. With a calm face, Jenny looked straight at Abigail, her voice indifferent. "That money, Simon gave it to me willingly, just like all those rumors you spread, legitimate and justified." With that, she didn't bother to see how Abigail reacted. She grabbed Elena and walked away, humiliated and provoked. Abigail Sue flew into a rage. She shoved a passing waiter toward them. The tray carrying a steaming hot soup tipped over, the scalding liquid about to splash directly onto Jenny and Elena. But Simon appeared just in time. He shielded both women with his body, and the bubbling broth soaked his entire left arm. His exposed skin immediately broke out in dozens of painful blisters. His face turned a shade paler from the intense burn. Abigail had never expected him to show up. She panicked, quickly rushing forward to check on his injury. Simon gritted his teeth. Suppressing the pain, he turned to look at her, his eyes cold as frost. "For the sake of Uncle and Aunt Sue, I've let a lot of things slide. But if you insist on being this reckless, I won't hesitate to make you regret it." Abigail opened her mouth to explain, but Simon didn't give her the chance. He grabbed the 2 shocked girls and left. The chilly night breeze helped clear Jenny's mind. Glancing at Simon's injured arm, she silently reached into his pocket and took the car keys. They rushed to the hospital. The nurse, upon seeing the large area of burned skin, was startled and immediately called the doctor. It was late. Elena had work the next morning. Jenny spent a long time convincing her to go home and rest. In the ER, only 4 people remained. Jenny turned to Simon, who was enduring the pain in silence. She pulled out 2 tissues and gently wiped the sweat dripping from his forehead. He looked up at her, eyes full of guilt, and spoke in a trembling voice. "This injury, it has nothing to do with you. She hates you because of me. I should be the one apologizing." Jenny knew, at this point, it didn't matter who was right or wrong anymore, so she didn't say anything. Instead, she picked up the prescription and went to get the medication. By the time she returned, the wound had already been treated. The doctor gave a long list of aftercare instructions before finally letting them leave. Jenny drove Simon home, standing once again in the familiar villa, gazing at the layout of the living room that hadn't changed at all. Jenny felt a moment of dazed nostalgia. The old butler saw her and lit up with joy. He hurried forward, talking non-stop. "Madam, you've finally come back. While you were away, Sir waited for you every day." Halfway through his words, he saw Simon's injured arm and froze. "Sir, what happened to your arm?" Jenny pretended not to hear anything. She handed over the medication, repeated the doctor's instructions carefully, and turned to leave, watching her walk farther and farther away. Simon felt a sudden emptiness. He wanted to call out to her, but when the words reached his lips, he swallowed them. The butler saw the look on Simon's face, those unsaid words and disappointed eyes, and nearly panicked. Without thinking, he chased after Jenny and called out to her, finally blurting out all the things he hadn't been able to say. "Madam, now that you're back, don't leave again, please. These past 3 months, except for work, Sir just stares at those flowers you planted in the yard. Every night, he mutters your name in his sleep. He flew to America every week just to see you from afar. But he didn't dare contact you because he didn't want to disturb you." Jenny had known none of this. She had thought Simon had moved on, that he'd started a new life. So when she heard all this, her first reaction was disbelief. Simon? Wasn't he always in love with Abigail? Why would he do something so irrational for a former wife like her? She didn't take the butler's words seriously. She looked at him seriously and said, "Uncle Lou, Simon and I are divorced. I've let go of the past. Whatever happens in the Zhao family now has nothing to do with me. Please don't call me madam anymore. Just call me Jenny. It's getting late. I'll head back now. Take care of yourself." Chapter 23. After a short 2-day break, Jenny got back into work mode. She followed Victoria to business meetings and learned a great deal from the negotiation process. The project progressed remarkably smoothly. Everything felt natural, almost effortless, without any major obstacles. During the negotiation with Zhao Group, Simon did not attend personally. Instead, he sent the vice president. Jenny let out a small sigh of relief and presented the well-prepared contract. After reviewing the terms, Zhao Group expressed strong interest in collaborating, but with one condition. Throughout the contract period, the designated liaison for both parties must be Jenny. Victoria immediately understood this condition was clearly Simon's doing. He was using the collaboration as an excuse to keep Jenny around. After thinking it over, Victoria decided to talk to Jenny directly. Once they left the Zhao Group offices, they found a quiet cafe to sit and chat. "Jenny," Victoria said gently, "this may be a little intrusive, but if you're comfortable, would you mind telling me what really happened between you and Simon?" Jenny hesitated for a moment, then told the story from beginning to end. 4 years as classmates, 3 years of marriage, it made up nearly a third of her life. But when she spoke of it now, it felt light, distant, like recounting someone else's tale. That once overwhelming love, the kind that had helped her through countless lonely nights, had finally been worn away by time. Victoria listened silently, unable to tear herself away from the story. She didn't know what to say. Any words felt painfully inadequate. Only silence echoed between them. Seeing the sympathy and sorrow in Victoria's eyes, Jenny smiled softly, her tone calm, like someone who had seen the world. "Vicky, I know you're torn. You want to secure this project, but you also don't want me to get hurt. I'm telling you all of this, not to reopen old wounds, but to let you know I've truly moved on. Whatever the reason they asked for me, I see it simply as a job. I may not have much experience, but if you and the team need me, I'll do my best. I won't let anyone down." Hearing her so resolute, Victoria's eyes filled with tears. This project meant everything to her. It was the linchpin of success, and Jenny was the key. Maybe using Simon's feelings didn't sound good, but it was the only path forward now. Thankfully, Jenny understood her intentions and was willing to help. Words couldn't fully express her gratitude, so she raised her glass instead, and they toasted. By the end of April, Victoria was ready to return to San Francisco. 4 signed contracts in hand, Jenny went to the airport to see her off. They hugged for a long time. As Victoria spotted a familiar figure in the distance, she couldn't help but ask, "Jenny, after 7 years of loving him, and now that he's finally clear about his feelings, are you really not going to give him another chance?" Jenny knew Victoria meant well. She wanted her to find happiness. But only Jenny knew just how long and bitter those 7 years had been. If it had only been unrequited love, it wouldn't have been so painful, just a lingering regret. But she had once believed she had caught the moon, thinking she had grasped the light, only to realize in the end, it was just an illusion reflected in water. After that, she no longer longed for the sky. Some things are only meant to be admired from afar. So she simply replied, "Vicky, life doesn't get a second take. We all have to move forward." Chapter 24. To make work easier, Jenny rented a penthouse apartment. The next day, someone moved in across the hall. It was Simon Zhao. In the month she had spent in our city, Jenny often ran into him in the most random places. By the supermarket shelves, at the entrance of hot pot restaurants, in some quiet corner of the park. Given his status, it was strange for him to show up in those places. Jenny knew he had been following her. Sometimes, when they bumped into each other, they exchanged a few polite greetings like old acquaintances. Other times, he would simply follow her quietly, like a shadow. Over time, Jenny, immersed in her own little world, got used to it. She even joked to herself that it was like having a free bodyguard. After they became neighbors, they saw each other more often, and Simon's smile grew brighter with each passing day. From time to time, he would invite her to go for a walk, have dinner, or take a short trip together. Jenny always found an excuse to say no. Each time she said sorry, the light in his eyes dimmed a little. She thought, again and again, that maybe this time would be the last. But the next day, he would always bounce back, cheerfully greeting her like nothing had happened. Watching his eager behavior, Jenny couldn't help but recall the way he used to treat Abigail in college, always afraid of upsetting her, doing everything to please her, even losing himself in the process. But Jenny was not Abigail. She wouldn't accept this kind of affection guilt-free, nor did she enjoy toying with someone just to prove her charm. She only wanted to live her life peacefully. That was all. Time flowed on, from spring to summer, and into the crisp air of late autumn. The project, which had lasted nearly a year, was finally coming to an end. The contract would conclude on the same day as Jenny's 25th birthday. She booked a flight back to San Francisco on that very date. The night before she left, she was packing late into the night when she noticed snow starting to fall outside the window. At midnight, there was a knock on the door. She opened it and saw Simon standing there, holding a birthday cake. He was smiling as he said, "Happy birthday." But Jenny could still catch a glimpse of sadness hidden behind it. She was stunned for a moment but quickly regained her calm and thanked him politely. Once the candle was lit, she clasped her hands together and made a wish. When she opened her eyes, she saw Simon looking at her, his eyes filled with quiet anticipation. "What did you wish for?" "The same as last year." The conversation ended there. Simon thought back to her birthday last year. The smile on his lips slowly turned bitter. Jenny lowered her gaze, avoiding his eyes. The atmosphere thickened with silence. After a while, Simon asked a strange question. "Jenny, the day you left last year, when you saw me off, what was the last thing you said?" "I didn't catch it then." "What was it?" Jenny couldn't quite remember either. All those cold, damp memories she didn't want to revisit had already been worn down and blurred by time. What remained were only the bright, vivid days. Those scenes that still warmed her heart whenever she thought about them. And on the eve of her 25th birthday, she hoped everything and everyone she'd encounter from now on would be full of joy. So she made up a reply on the spot. "Wishing you happiness, and wishing myself happiness too." Chapter 25. When Jenny woke up, the world outside had already turned into a snowy wonderland. It was still snowing. As she came downstairs, she saw Simon waiting by the roadside. He walked toward her, reaching for her suitcase, his voice carrying a mix of emotions hard to name. "It's snowing heavily, you won't be able to get a ride. Let me take you to the airport." This time, Jenny didn't refuse. She sensed that he still had something to say, and this time, there really was no return. There were things that needed a proper ending. After the car started, it moved slowly, very slowly, whether it was because of the slippery roads or because Simon intentionally delayed. It was unclear, but fortunately, there was plenty of time. So Jenny said nothing. She just stared out the window at the snow-covered world. Minutes passed. The heavy silence finally became too much for Simon. He wanted to speak, to steady his trembling heart. He wanted, perhaps foolishly, to touch her one last time, to make her stay. Jenny, do you remember the second Christmas after we got married? It snowed like this too. My mom wasn't doing well that year. And you took me to the temple to pray. I drew a fortune slip about love, it said, to gain a heart that stays true. Hearing that, Jenny did recall the memory. After drawing the fortune, the monk who interpreted it had said something strange. This is a destined bond, but also a destined trial. If you awaken early enough, it will be a great blessing. At the time, she didn't understand it. She thought the monk was trying to enlighten her, and she obsessed over its meaning for a long time. Back then, she had truly wanted to spend the rest of her life with him, but now she realized the one who drew the slip was Simon Zhao, and the words weren't meant for her. The person he had in mind when he wished to grow old with someone wasn't her. Was it? Jenny let out a soft laugh. I don't really remember. Simon froze for a second, then hurried to bring up another topic. He began recounting little fragments from their married life, mundane moments she had long forgotten. But he recalled with surprising clarity. Jenny didn't know that. Over the past year, Simon had replayed these memories again and again. That's why he remembered every detail. He was trying to warm her heart with these small but intimate memories. But Jenny's face didn't show any nostalgia. Unnoticed, they had already arrived at the airport. She took her suitcase and was about to leave when Simon called after her. He handed her a box, eyes filled with hope. When Jenny opened it, she saw a pair of jade bangles. She recognized them. They were the ones Madame Zhao used to wear daily. Supposedly, they were Zhao family heirlooms. Why was he giving them to her? If this is a parting gift, it's far too valuable. I can't accept it. Once again rejected. Simon could barely hold his smile. His throat tightened, and there was a flash of urgency in his eyes. Please take it. It's from me, and from my mother. Jenny gently shook her head. Her tone was calm. I know exactly what this gift symbolizes. That's why I can't accept it. I've told you this before. If the story is over, then let's return to where we started. Word by word, her response pierced Simon's heart. He stood there in the snow, helplessly watching her walk away. Step by step, she never looked back. Only the falling snow accompanied him faithfully, offering him the kind of growing old together